Our planet generates an incredible amount of extraordinary phenomenon. Some we take for granted, even if they are a little difficult to predict. Others occur to us as nothing short of miraculous. Often, these are events in places seldom seen by people. They are rare, mysterious, and many seem outright impossible. This series encapsulates the remarkable with the exceptional. Is seeing really believing? With the help of leading scientists, fact will be separated from fiction. Join us as we uncover the mysterious Moeraki boulders in New Zealand's South Island. Explore the unbelievable Rainbow Mountains of China and Peru, and venture underground to the extraordinary crystal caves of Western Australia's wild coast. It is a journey taken with eyes wide open. Welcome to Impossible Planet. For generations, these glistening domes have beguiled those who have come across them. Embedded along this shoreline, they are eerily, seemingly perfectly rotund. So perfect, is it possible they could be born from nature?
It's just so mystical and so weird, and that seems so impossible that there's all these weird things here. It brings to mind all these odd things like something like a dinosaur nest. It draws all the fanciful stuff from our brains to try to just piece it together. So it's fully understandable why they've been boggling people for millennia.
Held secure within these boulders are secrets of our prehistoric past. But the questions for experts is how many clues are they willing to relinquish?
It's a bit like a murder mystery in a sense. You have all of these bones lying around, but you've got to find them and you've got to figure out how they got there and what they were.
These are the Moeraki boulders. Situated on the east coast of the South Island of New Zealand, these strange, large concrete balls turn the shoreline into an otherworldly spectacle.
We don't really see that many things in nature that are so perfect. We don't really see straight lines, we don't see perfect circles, let alone see perfect spheres. Such awesome three-dimensional beauty. And so it's really the best kind of impossible because you have these amazing shapes, but also you have all this mystery hidden beneath them.
The mysterious Moeraki boulders appear to have been carefully placed along the beach. But how did they get here?
These do look like large dinosaur eggs, or essentially, it looks like an Easter Island sort of statue or something. Someone's carved it in a little quarry and it's tumbled on the beach. There are many people who believe they're just piles of concrete someone put there. But when you look into the rocks, there's definite evidence that it's more than that.
According to local legend, one story describes how food baskets were washed overboard a canoe during a storm. The precious cargo was later preserved in stone as the Moeraki boulders. Looking at the way boulders emerge from the beach, it's easy to think they might have been washed up onto the shore.
So there are local legends explaining how these things happened to be on the beach, and that they thought maybe they were washed up. But if you actually look up in the cliffs behind us, you see they actually wash out of the cliffs onto the beach. From a geologist's perspective, that's the route you take to understand how they were formed.
The boulders are monuments to another era, of a time when the world was a very different place. And the cliffs were underwater.
"60 million years ago, you have a muddy seabed off the coast. Now that the land is a bit higher than it used to be, it's been pushed up, so now we have these cliffs.
The boulders are made from the same soft mud. So what has turned these boulders into hard, perfectly spherical concretions? Looking at the concrete boulders closer reveals the key to their creation.
The reason why these are spherical concretions is because there's one nucleating point. There's a chain reaction, and then it grows in every direction, so it's spherical, and it will keep growing. With the right conditions and a few things like bones or something that's drifted down to the seabed, anything that's slightly different from the mud around it, that can form that nucleus in the right chemical settings to actually make these concretions grow.
The unique chemical reactions occurring around the organic kernel glues the tiny grains of mud together until they harden into solid concrete.
You have this growth of this reaction that essentially freezes the mud. It sends all these little crystals and all the gaps in between all the little mud grains. But there's always space. When you pile up something like mud grains, there are always gaps in between all these spaces. And in those gaps, if you have these minerals grow, they act as a cement. They glue every single mud grain together. So it's that spread of this crystal structure through those little gaps. That is what is spreading through the mud. So then you get that mud that becomes like cement. It's like a big piece of concrete, essentially.
Just how long it takes for these boulders to grow inside the muddy seabed remains uncertain. Initially, it was thought the process took millions of years. But recent research suggests the cooking time could, in fact, be considerably faster.
Some new research out of Japan has shown that we might actually be looking at time frames of maybe less than 1,000 years, maybe tens of years. So you have this nucleation process, and then maybe you very quickly actually get this boulder forming. And so you could get a 2-meter boulder maybe under 1,000 years.
While buried in the muddy depths, pressure can cause the boulders to bulge and crack. Sealing up the gaps are minerals that crystallize along the seams. as sea levels fell and the muddy seabed rose over millions of years, an outlet has emerged for these stone ball marvels.
So here we have another concretion, and this one is cool because it's still in the rock, because this is just mudstone that has been cemented, turned into a very hard rock. And slowly, with the waves coming and crashing on it, it will actually just roll onto the beach and join the others. The only reason why these are here is because this cliff slowly gets eroded back and they tumble out.
Over time, weathering begins to split the stone apart.
So we have the original concretion here, and it fell out of the cliff, and then it's broken apart into pieces, mostly broken apart in blocks where you had cracks originally in the rock that got infilled with calcium carbonate. These cracks got infilled, but that's still the weak point that allows them to break apart and form all these chunks on the beach.
The Moeraki boulders can measure up to 2 meters across and weigh up to 7 tons. Smaller rocks also roll out onto the beach, posing a further puzzle for researchers.
So here we have a small concretion, and this concretion is formed in the same processes as these large concretions, except this one stopped growing for some reason earlier than these other ones. So these other ones were probably growing for a bit longer, maybe thousands of years longer. We're not really sure. However, this one stopped growing quite quickly, and we don't necessarily know why, but it could have been something about the chain reaction, the chemical reaction forming the calcium carbonate that cemented this mud, which is the same as this mud further down just underneath us. And then this one is probably just recently fallen out of the cliff, so it still looks nice and fresh and smooth. It hasn't really started breaking apart along these cracks like these larger ones are starting to.
This isn't the only place in the world these boulders form. With the right settings and something to act as the nucleus, small concretions can grow.
If you look somewhere where there is mudstone and there are also fossils, these things that the concretions can nucleate on and grow from, then yes, you will find concretions.
It's thanks to this rare combination that we find the boulders here in such high numbers. A little further along the coast, and lesser known to passers-by, the same process has created more of these balls, only smaller in size. Having tumbled onto the beach, some of these concrete domes present a tantalizing peephole into our past.
These Moeraki boulders are in rock that is 60 million years old. So that's almost back to the time of the dinosaurs. Here's a graveyard of boulders, in a sense, but it also is a real graveyard of fossils too. So what exactly was on the seabed? What was in all these concretions? Because often we don't know. We don't actually find the center of these and they break apart and wash away. Very few actually crack open right in the middle, so you can actually see the original piece of bone or shell.
On the rare occasion a boulder does reveal its kernel. It offers intriguing questions about how our world looked soon after the dinosaurs disappeared from it.
We know it's a muddy seabed setting, sort of off the coast, but exactly what was there? A few penguins, there had to be fish, there had to be turtles, but we don't have all of the evidence for all of them yet.
The hunt for evidence has already admitted impressive clues about who lived here.
These concretions have yielded some very old penguin bones, 60 million years. So straight after the dinosaurs went extinct, there were some seabirds that lost their ability to fly, and they started swimming the oceans, and they were the earliest penguins. And we've actually found some of their bones in these concretions.
For scientists, The boulders work like a crystal ball, revealing a picture of our prehistoric past.
Here we have one of the fossils that actually caused a Moeraki boulder to nucleate, to form and grow around it. This was found at Moeraki, and it is actually a penguin leg bone. And the reason why we know it's a penguin leg bone is because we can compare it to a modern penguin leg bone. So this was probably a penguin that was maybe emperor penguin size, maybe even bigger. "60 million years ago, we had penguins in New Zealand," which is a very, very fascinating thing to be able to find out.
The extraordinary discovery of ancient penguins in the region offer further insights into what our planet was like 60 million years ago.
Sites like this provide us very rare glimpses of those earliest ancestors of modern penguins. It's an iconic group that everyone loves, but we know actually very little about their history through time. And this is one of the earliest snapshots. And we don't think they were around at the time of the dinosaurs, but rather you lose your mosasaurs and plesiosaurs and all these other marine animals, and you open up these niches. There's all this fish in the ocean, something needs to go catch it. So these birds lose their flight, they grow a bit bigger, and they get into the oceans and they catch all this food. And then some of them end up in these Moeraki boulders, so it's interesting full circle.
Understanding the makeup of the past can help us foresee how animals might survive in the future. As shifts in ocean temperatures occur,
the oceans actually were a lot warmer than they are today. So these were subtropical penguins, like swimming on the top of Australia sort of conditions. And so the settings were very different. These organisms like penguins can live in very different oceans, but maybe in different ways to today. Then that might tell us how our penguins will adapt to future ocean temperature fluctuations and changes in the general ocean ecosystem.
the Moeraki boulders mark this stretch of coastline as a rare and precious place. A place that continues to impart pieces of a greater story about our world.
I think it's the very best kind of impossible. One, we kind of know how they form, but it is still bizarre and still interesting. And the fact they have secrets hidden inside means there's all these layers of intrigue to tease apart. That ability to interact with nature is very special, and if it's something that draws people to come and interact, then that is a very special place indeed. So this place is a very good advocate for nature and its wonders.
Have you ever wanted to walk on a rainbow? To clamber over their picture-perfect color spectrum and discover what's hiding at the end? Sometimes only lasting in the sky for a matter of minutes, the formation of a rainbow is reliant on the right mixture of sunlight, water droplets, and the angle at which it's being viewed from the ground. Taking on many forms, rainbows don't just exist in their traditional fairy tale book arc formation, however. Cloud iridescence, or rainbow clouds, have also long enchanted humans. This amazing phenomena occurs when droplets of water cause sunlight to be diffracted or spread out, projecting a rainbow around the edges of the cloud. Unlike rainbows and cloud iridescence, there are some places on Earth, however, where the colors of the rainbow never dull. And no matter what the angle, their stunning hues are always visible. Instead of appearing high above us in the sky, intangible and evanescent, they are ever present, visible no matter the weather conditions, and, impossibly, they are below our feet. Some have even been there for millennia, hidden and waiting to be uncovered. This is the phenomena of the Rainbow Mountains. Occurring at only a few locations on Earth, these stunning striped hills are on the bucket list of many intrepid travelers. They're banding hillsides like something out of a Technicolor dream. Astoundingly, one of the most popular instances of this geological phenomenon was only discovered as recently as 2013 and is located in the Peruvian Andes. Vinicunca, or the Rainbow Mountain, sits at 16,000 feet above sea level. Amazingly, it is thought that its brilliant colors have existed for millennia, but have been covered by the heavy snowfall that previously carpeted the area. As the climate has warmed, the snow has melted in parts, revealing the hidden rainbow beneath. On the other side of the world, on the China-Mongolia border, sits the Zhangai Dangxia Landform Geological Park. This 200-square-mile park was first mapped by Chinese archaeologists in the 1920s and 1930s and was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2009. As visually impressive as these mountainous ranges are, what their colored bands represent is perhaps even more important. They are a painting of our Earth's past climates. And they are wearing the history of the world on their sleeve. Karl Heinz Werwohl is a geomorphologist who studies the way in which the Earth's formation has changed over time. He believes the significance of the Rainbow Mountains in both Peru and China extend far beyond their visual beauty.
This draws attention to the people to how things work, how the world works, how natural processes work. It has very important and very significant implications.
What these colors are telling us are the state of the climate at the time in which each layer was formed.
You're looking at something which is a reflection, which is an indicator of the dynamics of the global environment. It's not just something that's colorful. It's attractive. It's nice to see it.
So when did it all begin? Let's first turn to the Zhangai Dangxia landform in China.
We turn the clock back to 25 million years ago. At that time, the edge of the Tibetan Plateau was moving northwards through large faults. The area was beginning to experience mountain growth, uplift history, was beginning to really start playing its role, and the mountains were being eroded. and the sediment that was derived from these erosional features were deposited in front of the mountains. It consisted of rivers, it consisted of lakes, and it was taking place under conditions of quite warm climates and quite wet climates. So a strong signature that occurs in the sands, for instance, is quite deep reds are beginning to appear. So that's the beginning of the coloring, like this. So nature is coloring in its component parts through with red. Then it changes its palette.
"10 million years later, the climate changed again. Now drier and cooler, there were fewer lakes around, but their initial river deposits remained. As these deposits were exposed and weathered in the new climatic conditions, they took on a yellow color. Slowly, the rainbow was beginning to form.
And within that, we have also other sort of arrangements as well. We have sort of clays coming in, which sometimes can be quite white. We have other things which can be quite green, which reflect the chemistry of what was going on at that time.
Even then, although the land was now a mixture of vibrant reds, yellows, greens, and whites, it was still flat. The crumpled mountain ranges we see today still did not exist. In order to get these peaks and troughs, significant tectonic movement deep beneath the surface had to occur. For the Peruvian mountains, this movement took place 140 million years ago during a process called subduction. As the Earth shifted and changed, two tectonic plates converged. The dense oceanic Nazca plate was forced down under the more buoyant continental South American plate. As the plates passed over and under each other, the surface of the Earth was twisted and bent. The two plates' combined mass jostled for limited space and pushed together. They had nowhere to go but up. This once flat rainbow was pushed high into the sky.
You're seeing this fantastic array of color, you're seeing this fantastic geometry in the rocks. You're looking at all these sorts of things with a huge visual impact, and you can look for kilometers and kilometers and so on. So it's an easy way to describe them. But in fact, this description should really embed all this into what it actually means. And the meaning in there is that these sediments and their colors are a reflection of the way global climates have changed over the last 20, 30 million years.
Although the hordes of crowds who battle the tough hiking conditions each day are likely drawn to the colors of the mountains, each should keep in mind the secrets each color band holds and the fascinating geological history which has allowed them to walk somewhere over this rainbow. Trees, sand, sun, and ocean. It's a majestic combination, and a mecca for those seeking to capitalize on nature's beauty. That's certainly the case for the striking and ancient Western Australian coastline. Around 200 miles south of the capital city of Perth, lies the Margaret River region, an area boasting a stunning permutation of green canopy, sparkling blue ocean, and crystal white shorelines. But that's just on the surface. These natural forces have been working together for millennia to create something even more beautiful, and have hidden it deep within the ground. The aptly named Caves Road is the gateway to over 100 caves, each more stunning than the next, and each with their own amazing geological features. Andrew Green is a guide at Jewel Cave, one of the most decorated caves in the area.
It's just so huge and there's just so much in here. You're really looking at tens of thousands of crystals in this cave. Just an incredible amount of crystal. There's so much in the way of ancillary things as well, like you've got the microfauna that have lived in the base of the cave at various times. There's the amazing history of its discovery, people on the end of ropes coming in through holes in the roof. There's been some amazing animals fallen in through those same holes and discovered later on. So it's got an incredible paleontological background as well.
It's not rubies and diamonds that adorn the walls of this stone treasure chest. Instead, it's something even more impressive, delicate, and downright mysterious. They couldn't exist without the cave walls that surround them. A jewelry box 2 million years in the making.
If you go back about 1 to 2 million years ago, there were extremely strong winds which blew sand up from the coast into huge sand dunes. And those sand dunes, over a long period of time, started slowly cementing down into the limestone that we're standing in now. At the same time, you had existing water courses and water bodies that were already there that basically got buried by these sand dunes.
The sands along this stretch of coast are rich in coral fragments, which have been deposited by strong winds, blowing the sand up from the exposed seabed. Naturally rich in calcium carbonate, when these sands reach their inland resting point, they combine with water bodies to create an almost pure and, importantly, very porous form of limestone. This permeable rock was then carved out and shaped by the underlying water that continued to flow.
Those streams, for example, they didn't stop flowing when they were buried by the sand. They just kept flowing much more slowly through the base of the sand dunes. And over time, that water caused little collapses of this newly forming limestone rock in the bottom of the sand dunes. And suddenly you've got water has created a cave.
Jewel Cave and the other caves that dot this region are some of the youngest in the world. As a comparison, similar formations on the other side of the country date back 300 million years. What they've managed to create in their relatively short lifetime, however, is what makes these caves so spectacular and unique.
The main defining feature of these caves is the limestone is so porous that you've had this incredible amount of crystal growth in a really short amount of time. So these are like turbocharged crystal caves. That's their distinguishing thing amongst other caves around the world.
Existing as they have for thousands of years, some of these crystals are so beautiful, so intricate, and so unique in physique that they defy the laws of physics and baffle scientists to this day. The secret of their creation is still unknown, and one they are keeping to themselves.
Jewel Cave is quite famous for its Helictites, which are a really strange crystal formation. There's dozens of different kinds of crystal formations, but Helictites are the ones that scientists really struggle to explain, and there's still a bit of disagreement about how they form. There's certainly a few main theories, but basically what they are thin little crystal tubes that just don't care about gravity. They go wherever they want, and you'll see them go squiggling up and around and off in a different direction, seemingly with no real plan. How they're thought to form is if you've got tiny little droplets of water from condensation in the air or from splashback from a bigger drop, then sometimes the crystal growth will go with surface tension rather than gravity pulling it down. So when surface tension on that surface of that tiny drop of water is the main factor, then the crystal growth can go in any direction. We still don't have all the answers.
Incredibly, in spite of their mysterious nature, these formations are also a gateway to the past.
These caves are really a treasure trove of scientific information going back a long, long time. For example, we're all familiar with being able to use tree rings to go back hundreds of years to check out climate variation. These crystal formations give us the opportunity to go back hundreds of thousands of years. So by size of rings or the way the rings have formed, even the content of the rings themselves, we can go back a long, long way. Some scientists have actually taken it a step further recently with some, I think, just mind-blowing research where they're now extracting pollen from the rings that form inside the stalagmites in particular. The oldest part of the stalagmite out to modern day on the outside, and being able to recreate a snapshot of what was actually growing here 700,000 years ago. And it's just amazing.
Helictites are not the only gems in store for visitors to these caves. Cave coral, the byproduct of condensation seeping through the limestone, and aptly named because of its visual similarity to its underwater namesake, also adorn the walls. And stalagmites and stalactites litter the ground and ceiling. Here at Nilgi Cave, other ocean-inspired formations are also present.
So this cave is particularly well known for the abundance and amount of shoals that we've got in here. Particular formation shoals are pretty special because they form on a slope, so leaving a trail behind them of calcite crystal, and then the next strip following that on, following that on, following that on. Now, the cool thing about these shoals is we get some amazing colours come through them because of the tannins they're picking up from the soil above. So we get these reds and yellows, and you can even go back into the climate and see how it was thousands of years ago, so it's pretty amazing.
Stepping into these caves really is like a trip to a bygone era.
It's kind of like a time machine. So we can leave modern day up on the surface where we've got today's flora and fauna and, you know, smartphones and computers. We come down through this 1 to 2 billion year old limestone, and when we get right down to the bottom of the cave, you're actually getting down towards the original granite bedrock which underlies all this limestone. And that's between about 300 and 600 million years old.
As you descend 45 meters underground, the air becomes heavier and the moisture levels rise. Like all the great art galleries of the world, a constantly controlled climate and increase in humidity is integral to preserving the works of art within. Creating a naturally well-curated environment, sitting at a stable 20 degrees and 90% humidity. For the crystals, these caves are nothing short of ideal.
So a big part of why we're seeing these formations as they are is because it's so rich in carbon dioxide down here and high humidity, these crystals are in such a stable environment which keeps them as pure as they are. Whereas at the top of our cave, because there is a bit more airflow, a bit more dirt blowing in, you'll see the crystals are a bit more oxidised. So at this depth, not much airflow, in a very constant environment, which is keeping these crystals so very pure.
Astoundingly, it's not just crystals that are found at these depths.
Over a process of a very long time, obviously, peppermint trees have been able to make their way down 45 metres below the surface. So it's pretty crazy to see them all the way down there. There's a little food chain, I guess, down there with isopods eating the tree roots and centipedes eating them. And a lot of paleosoil, which is a type of soil which is very good for preserving fossils and animals, which is why we have found so many fossils like kangaroos, like Tasmanian tigers, etc.
It's an ecosystem which continues to surprise, delight, and hold tight incredible treasures. Sheltered beneath the canopy above.
There's something about that timelessness which I really love.